The Swami spent Christmas of 1895 with Mr. and Mrs. Leggett at their country home, Ridgely Manor, which he frequently visited in order to enjoy a respite from his hard work in New York. But even there, he would give exalted spiritual discourses, as will be evident from the following excerpt from a letter written by Mr. Leggett on 10th January 1896 to Miss Josephine MacLeod. One night at Ridgely, we were all spellbound by his eloquence. Such thought I have never heard expressed by a mortal man, such as he uttered for 2.5 hours. We were all deeply affected, and I would give $100 for a typewritten verbatim report of it. Swami was inspired to a degree that I have never seen before or since. He leaves us soon, and perhaps we shall never see him again, but he will leave an ineffaceable impress on our hearts that will comfort us to the end of our earthly careers. After a short visit to Boston as the guest of Mrs. Ole Bull, the Swami commenced a series of public lectures in New York at Hardiman Hall, the People's Church, and later at Madison Square Garden, which had a seating capacity of 1,500 people. In the last mentioned place, Madison Square Garden, the Swami gave his famous lectures on love as a spiritual discipline, which were subsequently published as Bhakti Yoga. Both the lectures of the Swami and his personality received favorable comment from the newspapers. He initiated into monastic life Dr. Street, who assumed the name of Yogananda. Mrs. Ella Wheeler Wilcox, one of the founders of the New Thought movement in America, spoke highly of the Swami's teachings. She and her husband first went to hear him out of curiosity, and what happened afterwards may be told in her own words. Before we had been 10 minutes in the audience, we felt ourselves lifted up into an atmosphere so rarefied, so vital, so wonderful, that we sat spellbound and almost breathless to the end of that lecture. When it was over, we went out with new courage, new hope, new strength and faith to meet life's daily vicissitudes. It was that terrible winter of financial disasters, when the banks failed and stocks went down like broken balloons, and businessmen walked through the dark alleys of despair, and the whole world seemed topsy-turvy. Sometimes, after sleepless nights of worry and anxiety, my husband would go with me to hear the Swami lecture, and then he would come out into the winter gloom and walk down the street smiling and say, "It is all right. There is nothing to worry over." And I would go back to my own duties and pleasures with the same uplifted sense of soul and enlarged vision. "I do not come to convert you to a new belief," he told us. "I want you to keep your own belief. I want to make the Methodist a better Methodist, the Presbyterian a better Presbyterian, the Unitarian a better Unitarian. I want to teach you to live the truth, to reveal the light within your own soul." You see, the Swami gave the message that strengthened the man of business, that caused the frivolous society woman to pause and think, that gave the artist new aspirations, that imbued the wife and mother, the husband and father, with a larger and holier comprehension of duty. Having finished his work in New York, the Swami, accompanied by Goodwin, left for Detroit. The main theme of his lectures and class talks was bhakti, or love of God. At that time, he was all love. A kind of divine madness seemed to have taken possession of him, as if his heart would burst with longing for the beloved mother. He gave his last public lecture at Temple Beth El, of which Rabbi Louis Grossman, an ardent admirer of the Swami, was the leader. The Swami cast a spell, as it were, over the whole audience. Wrote Mrs. Funky, "Never had I seen the Master look as he looked that night. There was something in his beauty not of earth. It was as if the spirit had almost burst the bonds of flesh, and it was then that I saw a foreshadowing of the end. He was much exhausted from the years of overwork, and it was even then to be seen that he was not long for this world. I tried to close my eyes to it, but in my heart I knew the truth. He had needed rest, but felt that he must go on." The idea that his years were numbered came to Swami Vivekananda again and again. He would often say at this time, "Oh, the body is a terrible bondage," or, "How I wish that I could hide myself forever." The notebook that he had carried during his wanderings in India contained these significant words: "Now to seek a corner and lay myself down to die." In a letter to a friend, he quoted these words and said, "Yet all this karma remained. I hope I have now worked it out. It appears like a hallucination that I was in these childish dreams of doing this and doing that. I am getting out of them. Perhaps these mad desires were necessary to bring me over to this country, and I thank the Lord for the experience." On March the 25th, 1896, he delivered his famous lecture on the philosophy of Vedanta before the graduate students of the philosophy department of Harvard University. It produced such an impression that he was offered the chair of Eastern philosophy in the university. Later, a similar offer came from Columbia University, but the Swami declined both on the ground that he was a sannyasin. In 1894, Swami Vivekananda had established the Vedanta Society of New York as a non-sectarian organization with the aim of preaching the universal principles of Vedanta. It became better organized in 1896. Tolerance and religious universalism formed its motto, and its members generally came to be known as Vedantins. In the meantime, the Swami's great works, Raja Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Karma Yoga, were receiving marked attention from many thoughtful people of the country. The Swami was serious about organizing Hinduism on a sound, universal, ethical, and rational basis, so that it would appeal to earnest thinkers in all parts of the world. He wanted to reinterpret, in keeping with the methods of modern science, the Hindu view of the soul, the Godhead, the relationship between matter and energy, and cosmology. Further, the Swami wanted to classify the apparently contradictory passages of the Upanishads bearing on the doctrines of dualism, qualified non-dualism, and absolute non-dualism, and to show their ultimate reconciliation. In order to achieve this end, he asked his devotees in India to send him the Upanishads and the Vedanta Sutras, with their commentaries by the leading acharyas, and also the Brahmana portions of the Vedas and the Puranas. The Swami himself wanted to write this maximum testament, this universal gospel, in order to translate Hindu thought into Western language. He expressed his objective in a letter written to one of his disciples on 17th February 1896. To put the Hindu ideas into English and then make out of dry philosophy and intricate mythology and queer, startling psychology, a religion which shall be easy, simple, popular, and at the same time meet the requirements of the highest minds, is a task which only those can understand who have attempted it. The abstract Advaita must become living, poetic, in everyday life. And out of bewildering yogism must come the most scientific and practical psychology. And all this must be put into such a form that a child may grasp it. That is my life's work. The Lord only knows how far I shall succeed. To work we have the right, not to the fruits thereof. The Swami always wanted a healthy interchange of ideas between the East and West. This was one of the aims of the Vedanta Society of New York. He felt the need of centers of vital and continual communication between the two worlds to make open doors, as it were, through which the East and West could pass freely back and forth without a feeling of strangeness as from one home to another, he wrote. Already he had thought of bringing to America some of his brother disciples as preachers of Vedanta. He also wanted to send some of his American and English disciples to India to teach science, industry, technology, economics, applied sociology, and other practical things which the Indians needed in order to improve their social conditions and raise their standard of living. The Swami often told his American disciples of his vision that the time would come when the lines of demarcation between East and West would be obliterated. From England, he had already written to Swami Sarada to prepare him to come to the West. In the spring of 1896, letters began to pour in from England, beseeching Swami Vivekananda to return there and continue his activities. The Swami felt the need of concentrating on the work in both London and New York, the two great metropolises of the Western world. Therefore, he made arrangements with Miss Waldo and other qualified disciples to continue his program in America during his absence. Mr. Francis Leggett was made the president of the Vedanta Society. The Swami had also been receiving letters from his friends in India begging for his return. He said he would come as soon as possible, but he encouraged them to organize the work, warning them against the formation of any new cult around the person of Sri Ramakrishna, who to Vivekananda was the demonstration of the eternal principles of Hinduism. On 14th April 1896, he wrote to India, that Ramakrishna Paramahansa was God, and all that sort of thing has no go in countries like this. One of the disciples has a tendency to put that stuff down everybody's throat, but that will make our movement a little sect. You keep separate from such attempts. At the same time, if people worship him as God, no harm. Neither encourage nor discourage. The masses will always have the person, the higher ones, the principle. We want both. But the principles are universal, not persons. Therefore, stick to the principles the Master taught us, and let people think whatever they like of his person. The Swami now made definite arrangements to leave for London on April 15th, and after carrying out his plans there, to sail for his motherland, beloved India. It should be apparent to readers of Swami Vivekananda's life that he worked under great pressure, from a fraction of which a lesser person would have collapsed in no time. Naturally, he spent his few spare moments in fun and joking. He would read a copy of Punch or some other comic paper, and laugh till tears rolled down his cheeks. He loved to tell the story of a Christian missionary who was sent to preach to the cannibals. The new arrivals proceeded to the chief of the tribe and asked him, "Well, how did you like my predecessor?" The cannibal replied, smacking his lips, "Simply delicious." Another was the story of a darky clergyman who, while explaining the creation, shouted to his congregation, "You see, God was a-making Adam, and he was a-making him out of mud. And when he got him made, he stuck him up agin a fence to dry. And then—" "Hold on dar, preacher," suddenly cried out a learned listener. "What's dat about dis here fence? Who's made dis fence?" The preacher replied sharply, "Now you listen here, Sam Jones. Don't you be asking sich questions. You'll be a-smashing up all theology." By way of relaxation, the Swami would often cook an Indian meal at a friend's house. On such occasions, he brought out from his pockets tiny packets of finely ground spices. He would make hot dishes which his Western disciples could hardly eat without burning their tongues. They were, no doubt, soothing to his high-strung temperament. But the Swami's brain was seething with new ideas all the time. He was very much wanted to build a temple universal where people of all faiths would gather to worship the Godhead through the symbol Om, representing the undifferentiated Absolute. At another time, in the beginning of the year 1895, the Swami wrote to Mrs. Ole Bull about buying 108 acres of land in the Catskill Mountains, where his students would build camps and practice meditation and other disciplines during the summer holidays.